Hi, Assalamualaikum. My name is Sarah Lisha 2010568, and as for my part, I'll be presenting the chapter 3 of the book Rethinking Muslim Women and Challenging Historical and Modern Stereotypes by Katherine Bullock. So, chapter 3 of the book has been named Multiple Meanings of Hijab, as the author discusses the multiple meanings associated with hijab and expresses concerns about the conventional wisdom in the West that oversimplifies the sociological complexity of covering, particularly the hijab, and portrays it as a symbol of women oppression in Islam. Hence, she aims to challenge the common Western presumption that every woman wearing a scarf is oppressed and instead focuses on the multiple meanings the hijab holds. In this chapter, the subtopics are multiple meanings of hijab through reasons for covering, as the author argues that the hijab holds multiple meanings that vary based on context and individual differences, in which Bullock synthesized these 7 core themes, which we will discuss one by one later on. We will also look at the meaning of hijab in Western media viewpoint, as the author also mentions that they analyze the meanings ascribed to the hijab by the contemporary Western media. As aforementioned, 7 core themes as the key issues regarding the reasons for covering specifically the hijab are highlighted. Firstly, revolutionary protest. So the hijab has been used as a symbol of resistance and protest against oppressive governments and colonialism. For example, during the Algerian fight for independence and in Iran during the 1970s, women who previously did not cover even donned the hijab to demonstrate their opposition to this regime. So this demonstrates that the hijab can serve as a powerful tool for expressing opposition to oppressive regimes and colonialism. It also challenges the notion that the hijab is solely a symbol of oppression and highlights its potential as a form of political protest. So this perspective emphasizes the agency and empowerment that women can derive from wearing the hijab. Next, political protest. So the hijab can also be worn as a political protest against westernization and neo-imperialism, signaling discontent with current political situations and policies pursued by the state. So by donning the hijab, these women indicate their dissatisfaction with the current political situation and the influence of the West on their countries. So this viewpoint underscores the hijab's significance as a means of expressing resistance and asserting cultural identity in the face of external influences. It raises important questions about the intersection of religions, politics, and identity. So the choice to wear the hijab as a political statement against westernization and neo-imperialism actually resonates deeply with us, with me as a hijabi woman in Malaysia, because it reflects the complexities of identity and the intertwined nature of religion and politics. So I understand well the desire to assert our cultural heritage and resist external influences that may erode our traditions and values. So I find it essential to preserve our unique culture perspective and challenge this dominant narrative. Third, religious conviction. So some women choose to wear the hijab based on religious belief and the international Muslims call to observe Islamic dress codes. This demonstrates that the hijab holds deep religious significance for these individuals and is seen as an integral part of their faith. So it is important to respect and acknowledge the religious motivations behind wearing the hijab, as it is a personal expression of devotion and religious identity. Like, wearing the hijab is a personal expression of faith and a way to connect with our religious community, even in Malaysia. Like, it is a symbol of our devotion and commitment to Allah. So I personally deeply appreciate the importance of respecting and understanding the religious motivation behind wearing the hijab, and I believe all hijabist women as well. And this makes open dialogue and mutual respect key to fostering understanding and inclusivity among people of different beliefs. In continuation, The text suggests that some women view wearing hijab as a way to improve society and address social issues. So this perspective reflects a sense of responsibility and activism where the hijab is seen as a means to foster social cohesion and combat societal problems. While the effectiveness of the hijab in achieving this goal may be debated, it is important to recognize the intentions and aspirations of those who hold this viewpoint. Because I believe that wearing the hijab can be a proactive means of promoting positive change in society. Okay, although it is true that clothing alone may not solve all social issues, however, individuals who choose to wear the hijab with the intent of advocating for justice and equality should be encouraged and supported, because it reminds us of the power of collective efforts in addressing social issues and working towards a more just and inclusive society. Fifth, expression of personal identity. Wearing the hijab can be a statement of personal identity that emphasizes the importance of religion and cultural heritage. Like, it serves as a badge of identity and a sign of the significance of one's faith. So here the text highlights that wearing the hijab can serve as a statement of personal identity for Muslim women, particularly those living in Western societies. So it becomes a visible marker of their religious and cultural heritage, enabling them to express their faith and affirm their belonging to a particular community. So this emphasizes the importance of individual autonomy and the preservation of cultural identity. For me, wearing the hijab is a powerful way to express our personal identity and embrace our cultural heritage as a Muslim in Malaysia. Like, it is a choice that reflects our values, faith, and sense of belonging to the larger Muslim community. Just like how individuals choose clothing that aligns with their personal style or cultural background, the hijab also serves as an important symbol for many Muslim women that embodying their unique identities. So it reinforces the importance of embracing diversity and respecting individual choices in expressing one's identity. And finally, state law requirement. So the text states that in some countries like Afghanistan and Iran, wearing the hijab is mandated by a state law. So this raises complex questions surrounding religious freedom, individual rights, and the relationship between the state and religious practices. Here, the author highlights the intersection of legal obligation and personal choices, underscoring the need for nuanced discussion on the role of the hijab in different socio-political contexts. Although Malaysia does not have state laws mandating the wearing of hijab, but we understand the complex challenges that such laws can pose to individual freedoms and religious autonomy in other countries. Therefore, I strongly advocate for upholding individual rights and freedoms, including the freedom to choose one's attire based on personal belief. So, because it underscores the need for societies to strike a delicate balance between state interests and the autonomy of individuals. So all in all, these key issues under the reasons for covering highlight the diverse motivations and meanings behind wearing the hijab, ranging from political and religious convictions to personal identity aspirations, cultural honor, and legal obligations. So understanding these varied reasons is crucial in order to move beyond simplistic stereotypes and misconceptions surrounding the hijab. In continuation of this comes the next subtopic titled The Meaning of Hijab in Western Media Viewpoint. So one key issue that summarizes the text is the Western media's tendency to associate hijab with oppression and negative aspects of Islam, as exemplified by the following quote. Okay, from this quotation, it is highlighted how the media simplifies and stereotypes hijab, reducing its sociological complexity and diverse meanings. The media's portrayal of hijab as a symbol of oppression and the media's portrayal The media's portrayal of hijab as a symbol of oppression overlooks the fact that many women in Muslim countries choose to wear hijab willingly and with conviction. By fitting empirical details into a preconceived mold, the media reinforces biases and perpetuates a negative narrative without considering the individual agency and diverse experiences of hijabi women. To conclude, the discussion surrounding the hijab and its various meaning is complex. Therefore, we need to support Bullock's cause to challenge the prevailing Western presumption that every woman wearing a hijab is oppressed, as this presumption overlooks the agency and personal choices of Muslim women who choose to wear the hijab as an expression of their faith, cultural identity, and personal preferences. By challenging the prevailing assumptions and highlighting the complexity of the hijab, the author aims to foster a better understanding of the diverse motivations and experiences of women who choose to wear the hijab, while also shedding light on the injustices they face in Western societies. And finally, fostering a more nuanced understanding of the hijab requires challenging these misconceptions, acknowledging the diverse meanings it holds, and promoting a more inclusive and respectful dialogue that respects the choices and experiences of Muslim women. That's all from me. Thank you.
In the fourth chapter titled Mernissi and the Discourse of the Veil, Bullock discusses the meaning of the veil, specifically the Western preconceived notion of it. The Western belief that the veil is a symbol of unjust male authority over women, and this idea stems from the two famous books widely referenced in the Western, Beyond the Veil and The Veil and the Male Elite, written by Moroccan feminist Fatima Mernissi. The issue at hand is how the meaning of the veil is shaped in the West due to their lack of research. They superficially accept Mernissi's books as facts, when truthfully her books are based on her beliefs and values that stems from her life experiences and do not reflect Islamic teachings. Mernissi was traumatized and pained from World War II and Moroccan social oppression as a woman. So, what happened? Mernissi herself, a feminist Muslim, believed that the veiling experience in Morocco is the definite experience of veiling, the inherent or true meaning of veiling, without actually understanding that Muslim women's experience in other countries and cultures are different. Bullock disagrees with her approach in two ways. One is that Mernissi offered an ahistorical approach to the meanings of religious symbols that fails to contextualize the differences of Islamic practices across time and places, and two, a reductive approach that doesn't acknowledge the multiplicity of discourse around veiling. There are two issues that can be found in this chapter 4. The first is Mernissi's ideas and thoughts are personal and should not be generalized to the entire Muslim women's experiences. Secondly, the Western world's shallow understanding of the Muslim experiences and thoughts led to pervasiveness of harmful conceptions of the religion and its followers. Based on this, Mernissi's beliefs and thoughts are personal and should not be generalized to the varied experiences of Muslim women, and most of her thoughts seem to stem only from her experiences and the female community around her. Subsequently, her arguments may not be comprehensive, nor do they represent the voices of Muslim women. Mernissi's ideas should be taken with a bucket of salt and should be studied and analyzed under the scrutiny of the framework of the Quran and Sunnah, and then illustrated more with perspectives from the other Muslim women to enrich the hijab discourse and find better understanding of the issues surrounding the hijab. Mernissi argues that Islam views femaleness as an anti-divine and anti-social force of nature, which led to the marginalization of women in the Muslim community. Mernissi believed that the veil excludes women from being active in society and social life, as women were confined to the domestic space. Women who sought to go beyond these boundaries were forced to veil themselves to hide their presence. Instead of recognizing that the society or community held patriarchal values and tackling the problem from that perspective, Mernissi decided to generalize patriarchy to all Muslims and Islamic teachings. This resulted in harmful effects such as the rejection of Islam, rather than efforts addressing patriarchy, misogyny, and social issues related to the women's suffering, and to foster a healthier environment. And not only was her ideas limited to her own personal experiences as a Moroccan hijabi woman as the basis of her ideas, most of her arguments against male Muslim companions were influenced by gender bias. That is, she was against their words because she perceived them to be misogynist. She portrayed Abu Hurairah as a misogynist in pages 147 to 148, leading her to interpret his hadith negatively. Abu Hurairah narrated that women could distract men during a prayer if she comes in between the man and the Qibla, and she took this as a female is anti-divine for being in opposition with the Qibla. In contrast to Mernis's ideas, Leila Ahmed, an Egyptian-American scholar, converted various veiled Muslims, from young Muslim feminists to Arab nationalists, violent jihadists, and peaceful Islamic activists, and found that the veil has gathered a range of new meanings in the 20th century. First, an expression of faith. Second, solidarity with Palestine. Three, allegiance to the Ummah. Four, a fashion statement. And finally, a critique of Western sexism. Thus, in ignoring the voices of the veiled women and in reducing them to passive victims, Mernissi is only reinforcing the colonial and Orientalist view of the veiled women. While Mernissi has some influence on the Western about the veil in Islam, their shallow acceptance should also be criticized. The Western world's shallow understanding of the Muslim experiences and thoughts led to the pervasiveness of harmful conceptions of Islam and its followers. Bullock found that the West takes Mernis's ideas as absolute truth of Islam instead of researching and analyzing the possibility of bias and flaws, and this is further exacerbated by the Western conceptions of Eastern. This is further exacerbated by the Western conceptions of the Eastern world as other or Oriental, leading to the belief that anything that happens on the other side is wrong, as the other side are not as civilized. An example of this is Mina Caulfield, a scholar who criticized other scholars who considered Muslim society as an example of healthy male-female dynamic. So what happened is Caulfield cited Mernis's research as evidence to support the assertion that the entire Muslim society has a master-slave dynamic that is inherently embodies its male-female relationship. So what happened is Caulfield cited Mernis's research as evidence to support the assertion that the entire Muslim society has a master-slave dynamic that inherently embodies its male-female relationship. The other scholars' extensive research and ideas were blatantly disregarded as they lose credibility in Caulfield's eyes by choosing as their example the roles of women and men in Muslim society as perceiving to be good. And instead of doing further research and comparing the other scholars' study with Mernis's studies to find any common ground or any contradictory ideas, she completely dismissed one and accepted the other without any investigation befitting of a scholar. And Mernis's arguments have caused a subjective idea to spread throughout the Western world, creating a harmful misconception of the Muslim community, which led to negative effects to this day. People who hold extreme negative misconceptions towards the hijab might result to violence in addressing their emotions or beliefs. Women all around the globe are being targeted by Islamophobia for practicing their faith by wearing the hijab, attracting hatred and abuse from bigoted people. Just recently in 2020, Muslim mother-daughter were assaulted to the point of sustaining severe injuries by a man. And this incident is not an isolated incident, as many women are coming forward with their own stories and anecdotes of their experiences with hate crimes. And hate crimes and Islamophobia not only harm the individuals involved, but also affect the entire Muslim community. And these incidents often draw attention to the Muslim community both positively and negatively, making Muslims more visible in public. And consequently, they become more susceptible to further hate crimes and Islamophobia if the issue persists. And the Western stagnant view towards Muslim women and the veil surely affects millions of women around the world, and thus they should increase their awareness of the Islamic teachings based on facts to correct their harmful worldview. There are many Muslim writers and women who proudly wear the hijab, while one may wear it to express their faith, some wear it also as a form of empowerment. And the recent portrayal of Muslim women in Western media, which has turned positive, as people understand the importance of harmony and inclusivity, certainly helped with the public's opinion on Muslim women. In popular Western movies such as Barbie, the representation of a Muslim woman, Dr. Fatima, playing a hijabi Barbie, surely helps increase the reputation of Muslim and hijab for the Western public. And Dr. Fatima said in an interview, quote, being part of this iconic movie as someone who doesn't fit the stereotypical image of Barbie has been an empowering experience, unquote. Hijabi Muslims cheer that they are being represented on the big screen in a positive manner, understanding that Muslim women are included in the conversation on body autonomy and women empowerment. In conclusion, while Menisi's influence on Western perceptions of the veil in Islam is significant, the shallow acceptance of her ideas has perpetuated harmful misconceptions, underscoring the importance of critical awareness and nuanced analysis to foster understanding and inclusivity. In the fourth chapter titled Menisi and the Discourse of the Veil, Bullock examines the Western perception of the veil as depicted in the works of Moroccan feminist Fatima Menisi. While Menisi's writings, including Beyond the Veil and The Veil and the Male Elites, are influential in shaping Western views, Bullock criticizes their shallow acceptance as factual representations of Islam. She argues that Menisi's personal experiences and beliefs, rooted in trauma and societal oppression, do not accurately reflect the diverse realities of Muslim women worldwide, leading to harmful misconceptions about the religion and its followers.
Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. My name is Katherine Najiha binti Hisham, metric number 2015240, and now I'll be presenting on the last chapter of the book Rethinking Muslim Women and the Veil by Katherine Bullock. So this chapter 5 is titled as An Alternative Theory of the Veil, which I summarized the entire chapter as the author proposes myriads of theories behind the command of putting on hijab or veil from Allah SWT to women. I'll be presenting on 3 key issues that I found interesting from this particular chapter. So let's move on to the first key issue.
So the first key issue that will be discussed in my part of the presentation is that hijab as the shield to protect women from the judgmental eyes of people and unrealistic beauty standards. I also attached 2 quotations from the book itself in the same slide, which are Mustafa and Yusuf Ali argue that hijab is liberating because it saves women from the ravages of the beauty game, and also the other quote is that because my appearance is not subjected to public scrutiny, my beauty, or perhaps the lack of it, has been removed from the realm of what can legitimately be discussed. So based on these quotations and the key issue of the idea that hijab is actually a shield that protects women from the judgmental eyes of society and unrealistic beauty standards. So rather than seeing a hijab as a tool or weapon that oppresses women, it's actually the other way around. It is actually a shield that can save women from a lot of trouble. One of them being that they have to comply to certain beauty standards. When we talk about beauty standards, they are usually questionable, they are usually unfair, and at some point super unrealistic for a woman to actually be that perfectly gorgeous or perfectly attractive according to the society's demands. So by covering up, a woman is basically saying non-verbally that my own body is my own private concern. However I want to look like, what color of skin I want to have, how long my hair should be, how much I want to weigh, it is all my own private concern. It is all according to my desire. So people in the society should not dictate or opinionate anything on this woman on how she should look like, because her own body is her own choice, what she wants to do, how beautiful she wants to look. That is all up to that woman herself. So this is what Katherine Bullock basically highlights in this particular chapter on how hijab solves all of this problem, because when a woman covers up, there is no strand of hair that is visible, there is no skin that is bared or flaunt. So it basically blocks and hinders everyone in society from saying anything, because there is nothing they can comment on. Everything is covered, the hair is covered, the skin is covered, so they are left with nothing to comment on, to condemn on, to chastise on. If the woman is beautiful, if the woman is not beautiful, they cannot comment on anything. Because if we think about it, even if a woman is super beautiful or super attractive, people would still comment and judge this woman. So what more if the woman lacks the beauty? Of course, this lack of beauty discourse is according to the societal standards. So in this discussion, it is important that we want to highlight, the main thing that we want to highlight is that to save the trouble of being judged as beautiful or not beautiful, a woman just have to cover up so that all of this problem will be settled, and they don't have to worry about complying to certain beauty standards. So it will definitely benefit their well-being mentally and also physically.
The second key issue that will be discussed in this presentation is that women's eyes and views towards other women are a product of men's eyes when they look at women. So there are also a few quotations that are attached in the same slide, which is not only does the woman internalize the male gaze and judge herself with the eyes of his desire, but also women then turn to one another and judge one another with those male's eyes. So in the discussion of feminism or misogyny and patriarchy in particular, we are often being reminded and being highlighted about how men are the major perpetuators of misogynistic tendencies and patriarchal behaviors, which is, of course, that is true. But we have to also admit that some women are being the major reinforcers of all of these societal patriarchal behaviors and also misogynistic tendencies. But when we think about it, how can a woman herself be a supporter of all of these patriarchy and misogyny? So this is the answer that is provided by Katherine Bullock in her book, in particular this chapter, where she says about a thing that is called as male's gaze or male's eyes, which are being unconsciously internalized by some women in the society. So how does this male's eyes or male's gaze work? It works when a woman looks at another woman through these male's eyes, which of course will connote the male's desires and how they demand a woman should look like according to what is pleasing and appealing to their eyes. So this is what ignites all of these weird demands coming from women to other women, where some women dictate to other women of how they should look like. For example, you should be this lean, your skin should be a little bit fairer, you should weigh less than what you are now. So that all of these opinions that are being dictated on women, if we see all of their rationales and reasonings, why are you dictating such things on other women? The reasonings are usually will end with, your husband will love you more, it will be easier for you to find spouse if you are slimmer, your skin should be fairer so that a lot of boys will want you, so that you will not end up single, and all of these kind of reasonings that usually will go back to the men. So these are the detrimental effects of internalizing male's gaze that women unconsciously are doing in their life now, whether they realize it or not. So it is super problematic. This internalization of male's gaze for women is super problematic in my opinion, because it will always bring all of these insecurities out of the women, because they will feel dissatisfactory of how they look like, because they want to please the men. That is the primary goal of looking at someone through these male's eyes. So when a woman puts on a hijab, this will solve all the problem, because there is nothing visible for the other women to comment on or the other men to comment on. Moving on to the third and final key issue that will be discussed in this particular presentation is hijab returns the value of a woman to be evaluated by her qualities as a human being. So there are two quotations that are included in this same slide of this presentation, which are, they view hijab as a way out of this trap, as something that gives women back their personhood, and hijab, when viewed from this perspective, is a way of saying, treat me as a person, not as a sex object. So we are familiar with the issue of women being the victims and subjects of objectification and dehumanization by people in society, by both men and women, unfortunately. So here, what Katherine Bullock is trying to highlight in this particular key issue that I extracted from chapter 5 is that hijab allows and provides opportunity for women to reclaim the personhood that was seized from them. So how does this happen, and what is the correlation with having to wear hijab? So as we understand the concept of objectification and dehumanization, women are often the victims of all of these objectifications and dehumanization, which means their qualities and they are being reduced and limited into a mere object, a pretty object, an attractive object that only can be seen and being used, which is obviously not something that reflect what a human being actually is and what their roles should be. So just imagine that in working settings or in academic settings, when a woman bare the skin or bare their skin and show a lot more than a woman who covers up. So these women will be judged based on how attractive and how she looks like, how slim she is, how fair her skin is. So it will eventually lead to people being biased and discriminate women based on only how they look and how pretty they are basically. So it will cause unfairness for even women and women themselves. Some people will of course be inclined and have tendencies to side with the prettier one, the gorgeous one, the one who shows the skin more. And it will reduce the quality of the woman from someone who probably has a lot of competencies, intellectual level, personalities. All of those qualities as human being will be disregarded and discarded because people will be focusing on the superficial qualities of them as a pretty woman only, which obviously is not the goal that feminists are always fighting for, right? So hijab returns this value of a human being to women again. By how? By the exact same argument, they are covering up so that there is no skin shown, no strands of hair shown. People would not know how they style their hair under that hijab. People would not know whether they are hairless or not. People will not be able to deduce how flawless the skin are in the inside. So people have no choice but to judge and look at them through the human qualities that they have, how competent they are in workforce, how intelligent they are in academic environment and academic settings, how excellent they are when they are in working or workforce. So this actually allows women to be humans again, just the same like how we look at men. So if we look at men and judge them based on how they act, their personalities, their behavior, their charisma, why we couldn't do the same to the women? So hijab essentially allows women to be humans again. And of course, prejudices and discriminations will always happen, and some women, even though they cover up, they will still be fantasized and objectified. Unfortunately, these kinds of scenarios are always happening despite the woman is fully covered up. But at least the hijab can mitigate this effect on in the individual level of that woman herself, so that she can feel how to be a human again without being reduced to just an object that should be looked at through lustful eyes or just a pretty stuff that can be discarded once the beauty wears off. To conclude the discussion of this chapter 5 of the book Rethinking of Muslim Women and Hijab or the Veil by Katherine Bullock, the command of putting on hijab or veil on women is in no way to oppress them. We have discussed all of the key issues before that. All of the reasonings and rationales behind women having to put on an hijab is all beneficial for them. So, some of the benefits that are provided by putting on a hijab is that it can ease their lives. Of course, a woman doesn't have to think about her hairstyle when she wants to go out, whether she should shave or not when she wants to go out. If she has some scars on her body when she wants to go out that needs to be covered or concealed, she can just wear a garment over her head, a hijab over her head, and just wear clothes that covers all of her aura. Also, hijab extricates them from public scrutiny. Of course, her own beauty is her own private concern. Hijab can preserve the beauty and protect their flaws, which is also the main case here and the main benefits that a woman can actually gain from wearing a hijab. Her beauty will be preserved and will only be shown and displayed for the eyes that are worthy enough to witness this exclusive beauty in her own private sphere, shown to those who she desires and see, and shown to those who she deems worthy to look at her beauty. And also, hijab protects the flaws, the scars, stretch marks, and all of these kind of things that can bring embarrassment to a woman, even though they are not anything that should be ashamed of. But still, all of their flaws will be completely concealed and covered when they put on a hijab and clothes that cover their aura. And finally, hijabs can boost up the values as humans for women because again, hijab returns their value as a human and allows them to reclaim back the personhood that is being seized from them so that people will evaluate women as a human being just like how they evaluate men. So, in all in all, hijab is always beneficial for women themselves. Even though it might not bring a lot of change in society, at least it can bring the individual level of satisfactory, individual level of solace and secure for women to be comfortable in their own skin and be pretty in their own way. That's all from me. Thank you for listening. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh.